Good morning, Bachman Middle School. Today is Tuesday, April 5th. It is a B day, it is a band day 2, and I am Mr. Strand with today's Tiger Talk. MCA testing is coming up, and it's very important that you update your iPad to the newest version of iOS. Here's how you do it. To update your iPad, find the Settings app. You can search for it in the search bar, or you can just tap on it on the home screen. Once you find Settings, open it up, make sure you're in General, and then choose Software Update. In Software Update, there is only one option, download and install. So choose it, choose that one. Then your iPad should start running the update. This will take a while. It'll say 1 minute remaining, but it'll start counting it down, and eventually it will get to 0. At this point, all you have to do is wait. Make sure that your iPad remains on. You'll see update requested, and then preparing update, and eventually it'll go to the black screen. This means that the update is installed, and when your iPad restarts, it will be updated. At this point, I couldn't screen record, so I had to switch to a shaky video taken by a different iPad. When your iPad looks like this, press the home button and then continue, and you are ready to go. Your iPad should work largely the same as it did before, but it is now updated and ready for testing. If you have any questions about updating your iPad, please ask me or Mrs. Tredenik. We're always happy to help. But now it's time for our word of the week. This week's word is inhabitant. An inhabitant is a person or animal who lives in a certain place. Today we're looking at the inhabitants of the unusual Australian town of Coober Pedy.
When I first got to Coober Pedy, I had no idea what to expect. This is a town in the middle of the Australian desert. It's 8 hours drive to the nearest city. I had to take 2 flights to get there. And when I was flying in, it's kind of like flying into Mars. Everywhere you look, there's just red dust as far as the eye can see. And the whole landscape is dotted with these piles of dirt, kind of like anthills. Coober Pedy's a mining town, so all of those piles of dirt are just leftover dirt from mine shafts. But it's not just about mining here. In summer, it gets insanely hot. And in winter, when I visited, it was absolutely freezing. So most of the town is actually built underground to escape these extremes. And all I could think was, how do people actually live here? How do people survive? And I guess most importantly, how do you get tech to work when you're in the middle of the Australian outback and you're living underground? So more than half the town lives in dugouts, which is the name for these homes built inside the sandstone, into the rock. And they blow them out with explosives, they dig them out with excavators, and they're kind of like rabbit warrens. The rooms are kind of circular, they have round ceilings, they wind every which way into the rock. There's really no consideration for architecture. But the cool thing is that they don't need air conditioning or climate control, because when you build into the rock, the rooms stay cool all year round. The only thing they need is really basic ventilation. So that's just as simple as a tube that runs up to the ground above and keeps air flowing into the house. It's amazing. So Coober Pedy looks kind of like something out of the Flintstones, but I was really surprised that the townspeople actually use a lot of tech. They use things like Wi-Fi hotspots to stay connected underground, and Australia's national broadband network has started installing satellites so people can get internet in their underground homes. There's plumbing and electricity like any normal house, and often the people who build these houses wire the electricity in themselves, stringing the wires over the rock. The whole town is completely off the electricity grid, so while they used to have to rely on diesel generators and diesel trucked in from out of town, now they have this big renewable project that has brought wind turbines and solar, meaning they can power the town with renewables. The whole town was built on opal mining, and people actually still mine there, so they have these converted trucks called blowers that suck dirt out of the ground. They blast out mine shafts with explosives, and they still go over rock seams digging out opals by hand. They finish the opals by hand too. They cut and polish them into these beautiful iridescent gemstones that look kind of like shards of rainbow.
There are no windows to the outside in the Bachman Library, so I sometimes feel like I live underground, but it's nothing like those people. Finally, today is also Math Tip Tuesday. And here is Ms. Wilson with this week's tip.
Hey, Bachman Middle School. It's Ms. Wilson here. Did you know that you are a math person? Yes, all people are math people. And today's video, we are going to look at what number sense is and how it might look when solving a multiplication problem.
Hi, my name's Jo Bowler and I'm a professor at Stanford. So what is number sense? Let's think about a problem. Let's think about 18 times 5. A student with number sense could solve this in many ways. For example, they might say, I know 20 times 5 is 100, and I know 2 times 5 is 10, and I'll take 10 away from 100, which gives me 90. We can visually represent that, and visual connections are really important for our brain. So what would that look like? If I drew 18 times 5 as a rectangle like this, we could represent 20 times 5 by saying it would be a slightly bigger rectangle, and we'd subtract this blue part. Another way to think about 18 times 5 is to say it's actually equivalent to 9 times 10. And the visual representation of 9 times 10 is kind of interesting. If our 18 times 5 rectangle looks like this, then our 9 times 10 rectangle would look like this. And that 9 times 10 rectangle has the same area as the 18 times 5 rectangle. A third way I might solve this is to say, well, I know 9 times 5 is 45, and I can do that twice to give me my 18 times 5. And that visual would look like this. There's our 18 times 5 rectangle, and this time I worked out 9 times 5 and 9 times 5. And there we have those two rectangles. A fourth way to solve this is somebody might say that they want to break up the 18 to work out 10 times 5 and then 8 times 5 and add those solutions together. And the visual of that is, if this is our 18 times 5 rectangle, then we can find our 10 times 5 and 8 times 5 rectangles, and they would look something like this. Another way, a fifth way of solving it, is not to think of 5 18s, but to break that up and to think of 2 18s are 36, and then we have another 2 18s are 36, and add on a single 18 to give us 90. And that visual looks a little different to our others. So if we have our 18 times 5 rectangle, this time we've broken up the 5 into a 2, and a 1. So we've seen 5 different methods for 18 times 5. Can you find different ways of solving 12 times 9, both numerically and visually? The variety of methods we see is part of the beauty and creativity in maths. All problems can be solved in different ways, and we should embrace that. Number flexibility, being able to work with numbers and see what they are made of and combine them in different ways, is an important part of number sense. If you'd like to see and learn more, come to UCubed.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson. That's all for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more Tiger Talk. See you then.